Welcome everybody. We could make it a start tonight, and my name's Kathi. I'm just going to open up a document. All right, well, first of all, we'll meditate and give ourselves a chance to wind down. So, becoming conscious of your posture for conducive meditation, and that is mainly keeping the back straight. Don't have to worry too much about any formal position. And allow the shoulders to relax, but keep them straight. And the head just finds a comfortable angle, generally so that you're looking down over the top of your nose to the floor. But it's really about being perfectly comfy. And that's partly why a balanced posture is good, where the feet, if you're sitting on a chair, the feet are flat on the floor. So we're going to just spend a few moments going through the body and relaxing any tense muscles. You can start at the head, the crown. Just be aware of your eyes, relaxing all the muscles in your cheeks, your ears, your chin. And go down slowly the neck and shoulders and your back. And you can visualize any tension just dissolving away, like the muscles opening up and stretching. So down your torso and hips and buttocks and legs and your arms. And then we'll bring our attention to the breath. Just following the natural rhythm. Sometimes when we pay attention to the breath, it starts feeling a bit awkward to breathe. So just relax into that gently. And there could be background thoughts and distractions and bodily sensations. But allow them not to be the focus. Just let them go. And if you find yourself following any thought or getting disturbed by a noise or something, just re-establish your focus on the breath. And now, whatever feeling is most prominent in your awareness, perhaps it's a feeling of stillness or calm. Perhaps it's a feeling of frustration or something that's started to bother you. Maybe you're still conscious of something that rattled you this evening before you came. Whatever feeling is most prominent, just give it your full attention. Allow it to be here. Open your mind to it. and merge your whole awareness within it. And it could be a physical feeling or a mental feeling. Or you could also give it attention by recognizing it, this feeling, and naming it. Could be tingling or itching or throbbing or an uneasiness or a feeling of nausea. Or it could be a feeling of sadness or anger, anxiety, anything. Sometimes by naming it and observing it, it takes away its power. And we find we can let it go. So we'll finish there for the moment. So last week we were looking at different afflictive emotions and a lot of such as despair and resentment, and we're looking at forgiveness. And so we were seeing how all of that can stem from unresolved events in our life, like even apart from trauma, just difficult times, and not just in the past but even recent. So it could be from our childhood or could be a current situation. And what often we do is we just get on with our life. We don't actually fully address what we're feeling. And so the residue of that, and perhaps even the full force of that emotion is stuck there. And this meditation we just did is one of the ways we can really resolve them. And it might sound like that meditation is a bit airy-fairy and not going to do anything, but it has a profound effect just by acknowledging the feeling and feeling it. You've probably heard about embodying emotions, so that's what it is, and it's a powerful technique, and it's an ancient technique as well in Buddhism. Like I mentioned last time, one of the most revered masters of the past, it was his innermost advice. So something to keep in mind. So also just to clarify, when we have, it's not the distressing events in our life that cause those negative emotions to arise. It's our mind that responds to them in that way. So that brings all the control back to us. That means that we can manage it, which is a great plus. As you can see, we can't control the world out there, but what happens to us we can't do much about, but we can sort out how we react to that, and therefore our inner health, and actually our physical health too, because it's so interrelated. Our emotional and physiological well-being is all so interconnected. So just to reiterate, firstly, these difficult events that may have happened, as I was talking about last week, it may involve us needing to purify something that some negative action that we did towards others, which is still sitting on our psyche. Could be, whatever we did physically, mentally, verbally. So our thoughts have that impact on us as well, which is why we have this resentment and anger and so on, perhaps building up. And I mentioned last week the 4 opponent powers as being a really one of the main ways in Buddhism that we address that. And also, secondly, there's the way it affected us. So, in some of these events, it may have just been that it impacted us, and that, but at any rate, we also need to address that, and that involves love and compassion towards ourselves. And that's really the topic tonight. It's love and compassion. And we start that with ourselves because, in Buddhism, renunciation comes first before bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is that wish to achieve our highest potential so that we can fully help others. So basically it's compassion on steroids. But first of all, renunciation, that is really addressing our own suffering and coming to understand how we can do that in our own mind. So alongside that work of inner compassion, at the same time, we can start naturally to be able to more deeply acknowledge the suffering of others. That goes hand in hand because, as you would already know in your own lives, when we understand ourselves and what we've been through, we can empathise and sympathise with others. So just with love and compassion, to define the Buddhist, it's quite specific in Buddhism. So love is wishing others to be happy, basically, wishing happiness for others, and as opposed to, say, attachment, because in Buddhism, attachment is really centred on ourselves. We're seeking something out of that object that we're attached to, whether it's a person or thing. And compassion is wishing others to be released from suffering. So there's just that emphasis. Love is wishing others to be happy, and compassion wishing others to be not in pain. So the more completely we recognise the extent and nature of our own pain, the more we can, like I said, extend that to being there for others. And, we don't have to be enlightened to benefit others. It's like we do this as we go along. But we do need to have a backdrop of understanding of our own stuff. So what can happen is, without this inner understanding, we may not be fully conscious of how, our behaviour. Like, for instance, we may be judging others, but what's really behind it is this, we see something in others that's actually a reflection of ourselves, and we haven't processed that within ourselves, even though we don't like it and we would never do it. It's like it bothers us in someone else because we haven't fully addressed it and seen it for what it is, and released it. And so it's like when we see it out there, it's almost worse because, it really bugs us because it's like we don't really want to be reminded of it. And something like that. So it's like it still plagues us. So once we manage to resolve that in ourselves, then it's like, well, when we see it in others, we're more likely to have understanding and compassion than anything else. So the patterns that we see in the way we relate to others and to situations in our life can tell us a lot of where we're at. And it's useful. We can come to recognise the patterns in our behaviour. And in Buddhism, that can be called karmic predispositions. So it's quite perhaps unconscious stuff. And I think why we do tend to suppress and repress emotions is sometimes we just don't know how to deal with them, or we're afraid of them. We just want to move on and like don't want to acknowledge something. And even fear itself can be like that. And we can be afraid of having fear. Like the thought of having fear is something that we kind of keep away from. We don't want to be fearful, and but what ends up happening is a tendency for underlying anxiety and tension because of not really taking on board. Once we fully face something, like I said before, it loses its power over us. So it's a funny thing that it can go to such an extreme, like paranoia and panic attacks and all that, and really get out of control and cause so much pain and suffering. Because basically it escalates because we don't ever address it. And also what can happen is, in our behaviour, we'll have like the residues surfacing. So it's like this kind of inner demon that unsettles us or harasses us, and so something like anger or resentment could manifest in our behaviour as, being super touchy or irritable or even depressed and impatient. All of that, can come from anger. So this inner work can transform all that into patience and love, getting back to love. And one thing that's really great, I think, to see is that whatever presents in our life, whatever's happening, no matter how seemingly incidental or conversely how outrageously devastating or annoying or something, it is what is pertinent what needs to be addressed in our mind right now. Can you see why that is? Any questions around that? Yeah. I think it's to do with the ripening of karma and how when the right causes and conditions get, assemble in one place. Well, so karma is like defined as the mental urge to do something, to think, say or act in some way. So that creates an energy, either positive or negative, and it not only plants itself in our mind, but also emanates out, ripples out into the universe. So whatever thing that might be giving us grief in our life, such as now, that is precisely what has the capacity to lead to a breakthrough. So when things ripen karmically, our mind is like, we might not feel ready for it. It might be, oh God, you've got to be joking, last straw, or it could be just something that really bowls us over. But actually, there's a momentum there that our mind is bringing it up to deal with it. And what also that means is, like, these emotions and issues that, like, we wish we didn't have them, we want to get rid of them and just be happy, but actually they are not obstacles on the path. They are the path. They're what is, where our mind is at the moment, and can lead to, the breakthrough that can come from that can be really significant and bring a deeper understanding. Yeah, so whatever is maybe causing havoc in our life, it can be really tough. But on the other hand, that actual suffering is the key to resolve inner turmoil. And when we do that, sometimes there's a radical shift, and we get to, or even if it's gradual, we get to have a taste of what's beyond all that turmoil, and that more greater clarity and more sort of lightness in our life and joy. And then also with that lightness and joy, we're more able to generate these positive emotions like love and patience and all that. So everything's kind of interconnected. And once we start extending, not that we're not already doing that, but in extending compassion to others, we also generate a whole lot more positive energy that basically rebounds on us. So it's like a loop effect. True love and compassion is really powerful, and it's the basis of emotional and physical healing. There's a particular practice that we do in Buddhism called Tonglen, giving and taking, and it means, actually it's taking and giving. We take the suffering from others onto ourselves and give all our happiness, and imagine giving complete happiness to others. There's got a bit on that in a teaching by Lama Zopa Rinpoche. He's the one on the left up there, and I think this is. Oh yeah, it's an example of someone who did Tonglen. What they often use Tonglen for is self-healing, and it's so powerful. So people often in Buddhism will practice that if they themselves are sick. And there's a story that I know quite well, but I'll read points of it out because it's more poignant coming from Lama Zopa. And he tells the story of this guy who had AIDS back in the day when it was unmanageable and you died from it. And this guy had asked for advice from his teacher, Buddhist teacher, and been told to do Tonglen. And so he did that. He just had the test, and been told that he had HIV. And then he did the meditation on Tonglen for 4 days before he went back for another test. And so the doctors couldn't find any trace of the HIV virus at all when he went back. And Lama Zopa was talking to this guy and he asked him how much meditation he'd done on Tonglen. And he says, I was shocked when he said that he'd meditated for only 3 or 4 minutes each day. I was expecting him to say he'd meditated for many hours. But these few minutes of meditation were extremely powerful. He thought only of the suffering of others, especially of those with AIDS, and generated intense compassion, and tears streamed down his face every time he did the meditation. He felt so much compassion for the other people with AIDS and for those with other problems. And he had strong devotion to his teacher as well, and felt that his teacher was with him there at the time of meditating, guiding him. And so Lama Zopa says his quick recovery came through the power of his own mind, through the power of the compassion he felt, and the strong compassion he generated purified so much negative karma and obscurations, which were the cause of his AIDS. So the Tonglen meditation is the heart of healing. And Lama Zopa says we can apply it to every problem in our life and transform all our problems into happiness. It is simply a question of whether or not we do the meditation. So he's very inspiring. And a lot of people have talked about using Tonglen in even just having a headache and how it can lift it. We might have time to do that meditation later on. And like the positive, uplifting energy of compassion, you can see that exemplified in the behaviour of the lamas, the ones who live here and even, long-term practitioners. I was reading about that last night in, again, another book of Lama Zopa's teachings about St. Francis of Assisi and how he tamed wild animals through his love, where is it? Yeah, it was quite amazing. So this, you might know, in the place in Italy, Assisi, is where St. Francis' hermitage still is, and you can go there. And Lama Zopa always visits there to pay respect to such a, amazing saint of, exemplifying love. And I went there once with him, a group of us went there, and it's just like being in the Himalayas in Tibet or somewhere. This hermitage, just like a cave kind of thing on the side of a mountain, and you can go there, but it's informal. It's not like a big tourist attraction or anything, and it's quite quite powerful. And Lama Zopa is saying that at that time near there was a forest where there lived a dangerous wolf that had harmed and killed many people. And St. Francis told the local people, don't worry about this wolf, I'll go into the forest and ask him not to harm anyone. And the people begged him not to go because the wolf would attack him, but he went away. He went anyway, and when the wolf saw St. Francis, it immediately became subdued. It was completely transformed. Rinpoche says it was blessed by St. Francis, and instead of attacking him, the wolf licked his feet. And apparently St. Francis told the wolf not to harm people and that he would beg for food in the city and give it to him. And from that day on, the wolf stopped attacking him. So, I mean, it's kind of like one of those classic, amazing stories, like a wolf that's been killing people, eating them or whatever. And yeah, the power of compassion is really out there. And I was thinking about that energy that such great being as St. Francis has, and actually it's the epitome of Lama Zopa and the other lamas. Like, a lot of people know how being around Lama Zopa was so, he's passed away now, but it was so powerful. Like, people would just start weeping in his presence, you know, including me. And like, you could hardly sleep around his energy because of that power and intensity. And you didn't want to sleep because it was so joyful to be like in his, you know, just with him and doing stuff, and life was so amazing around that energy of love and compassion. You know, it's really so powerful. There's a story I remembered that a guy who comes here to the teachings and does a lot around the centre, he was telling us that one time he was feeling really quite depressed and he had to go up and get shdoga for something for the teaching. And when he got up there, he was staying there feeling really, really deflated. And another Geshe that lives here, Geshe Jungshu, put his head round the corner and gave him a big grin. And he said, just all the depression just melted away. And then another time after that, he was helping in the kitchen with all the cleaning the pots and all that, and he said his back was killing him. And he was just about to say to the others there that, you know, he had to give it away because it was in too much pain. And Geshe Jungshu smiled at him and all the pain just evaporated. So, you know, these are just really lovely stories that give us a sense of the power of compassion in these great beings.
So how do you define compassion?
Compassion?
Yeah, you talk about loving. What's compassion?
Yeah, it's the wish for others not to suffer, not to be in pain. Yeah. And one way we can generate love and compassion is through firstly addressing stuff that's in the way in ourselves, all those mind states that are holding us back. Like, I was thinking, when we experience conditional love, which is, you know, not true love, but, you know, where we feel we're not really being appreciated, we're not really wanted around, we're not valued, and we just don't feel loved. When that happens, Could be from anyone, our partner, parents, children, siblings, whatever. So there's a way where if we take that on board and sit with that feeling and accept that unsatisfying, rather hurtful experience of not feeling truly loved, then by releasing that within us, by default, it means that we would come to the point where we could love others unconditionally, because we would not be dependent on them loving us. So it's about like really taking on or surrendering to the pain of not having true love and care from someone. And once we conquer that, it's like we can just be there for others, regardless of whether they're there for us. And I mean, in a relationship where we might not be, others are hurting us, or it's not great. You might wonder, well, why would we want to even do that? Why would we stick around and love them? But then we go back to this energy that we create when we do generate love and compassion is so all-consumingly wonderful, and generate. We have this ongoing joy and invincibility. We're not dependent on what others are thinking of us or doing to us or any of that. Of course, it's not about being a doormat, and if there was physical violence, then of course we leave that situation. But yeah, it's about, nevertheless, even if we did have that situation, to generate love for them so that our mind is taken care of. And also, when we do that, there's a certain dynamic that occurs in the relationship. There's an energetic, it affects the other person as well, where one person is at. And so we can also turn things around that way. I've seen that happen so many times. So there's, what do you think about this? Like, nobody can help being other than what they are. Do you think that's fair enough?
Kind of depends what situation it is, because some people will learn new skills if they want to, and then some people don't. Like, if it's like a habit that affects someone else, whereas like harming somebody else.
But is it possible to truly accept someone the way they are?
Yeah, you can. You might like it, but you can.
Or are we always like hoping they might change, or pointing out to them how things, they could do something better?
You accept them, but you might like what they do.
I think when you love someone unconditionally.
Sorry?
Sorry, I was just going to say. Sorry, you finish?
Sorry, I said that sometimes you can accept them, but you might not like what you want to accept, and you have to take your own needs sometimes over their needs.
Yeah. Emma?
I was just going to say, I think when there is a special person or people, family, friends, whatever it be, that you can love unconditionally, then I think you can accept them for who they are, like everything. But I think when you love someone unconditionally, then with time and encouragement of practice, you can maybe try to get to a point where you accept the things that
Yeah.
as long as it's not unhealthy, I guess. And I think if it is close enough relationship, you can love someone unconditionally. Whilst you can't change someone, you can hopefully be in a position where you can have that open communication, where there perhaps is that transparency, where you can perhaps share, what your concerns are, or
Yeah.
I think as a parent sometimes, our role is to show guidance, where as parents you're not perfect, or as any individual you're not perfect, but if, our role as a parent is to try to guide your child to be the best they can, and it's kind of your duty if you think
Yeah.
that's what they're doing.
Yeah, so just so everyone can hear your response, it is possible to have that unconditional love in a relationship and accept people's flaws, but you could also discuss it with them. Is that right? And if you're a parent, that you have this duty to perhaps, what would you say, like guide your children in that way? Yeah.
But it may not be both ways. It could just be that, I think it's rare to have that.
Yeah, it may not be both ways in a relationship, but you're willing to accept that, you mean? Yeah. Yeah, there's ways to work with it, and there's one thing that happened with, I've told it before, but it just shows how you can, without having to really discuss anything with your partner, or say in any relationship, you can resolve it in yourself, and how that actually plays out with them also resolve it. I better just tell you what it is rather than explaining it like that. So someone was basically telling me, insulting me, and I was, really offended, and I went off and just tried to sit with the feeling. I just started doing that technique, and I sat with that feeling for probably about half an hour, and then later in the day I still felt really annoyed, and I just sat with it for about another half hour, and then I wasn't in the frame of mind to see that person again that day, even though I was supposed to go out with him that night. But I did get to the point where I could call him and say I wasn't going to come out, whereas before I was just not even going to talk to him. And then the next morning, when I woke up, I just felt like it was completely resolved. It was uncanny. It was like it had never happened, and it was so like okay that just resumed where we left off. Anyway, then down the track, he said the same thing again to me, and but this time it just totally went over my head, like it just was totally okay. I didn't even care, just didn't mean anything. And then not long after that again, he apologised for having put me down recently. So I didn't have to address it at all with him. It all just unfolded like that. And so I got a lot of faith in that technique and I've done that with my son, and over conflicts and that. Yeah, so it's certainly interestingly powerful. And then there's other ways in Buddhism, such as to generate compassion, such as the 7-point cause and effect method of seeing all beings as our mothers. And there's another way called exchanging self for others. And Lama Zopa, I've got a quote here, he says, to regard the suffering of others exactly as our own and to help others as if they were ourselves. We need to cultivate this attitude to the point where we experience whatever is happening to that other being's body and mind as also happening to us. If we do not equalise ourselves with others, many realisations will not come. So, are there any other comments or questions? Because if not, we'll just do a short...
People who have power issues over a person.
Yeah.
Some of the arguments you're saying is not about whether, for you guys, about a power thing.
Yeah, I know. It's tricky.
Like even in a shop or even you go somewhere that's
Yeah.
like, out of the blue, it's about a power thing.
Yeah, yeah.
I refuse to give someone that power where they intimidate me to a point where, you know, I accept them and what they do, and then I like what they do.
Yeah.
And I say, well, it's not me, so it's you.
Yeah. Well, I think, in that situation, the same applies. We can just feel that, we can have compassion for that person who's really over the top, and that energy can carry through, and we don't have to have anything to do with them, but we can just hold that in our heart. I think that's the answer. Yeah. And I think we really need to just use these techniques. Yeah. So we'll just try this Tonglen meditation. It's just short one where we imagine all beings in front of us, or you can also imagine particular people or animals, perhaps that you know are suffering, but they can all be, classically they're all in a human form, and we imagine bringing all, breathing in all their suffering, all their pain, all their illness and disease in the form of black smoke. And we breathe it in to our heart, and at our heart is all our inner turmoil, all our self-concern, our afflicted mind states, our distressing emotions. And this black cloud of representing their suffering completely obliterates that which is at our heart. We can visualise that that's all sitting at our heart in a black ball, and when the black suffering comes in, it completely explodes, and our body becomes full of light and joy. And then we breathe that out, or we send it out. You can visualise it going on your breath, or you can simply emanate out light back to all sentient beings, all those suffering beings, and filling them with light and happiness and health and everything that they want. All the realizations on the path, all the infinite joy. And we can repeat that a number of times. And we can finish on the note of emanating all that light and love out to all beings and filling the universe and wishing that all beings may experience ultimate happiness. So we can finish the meditation there. And thank you so much for everyone for coming, and please join us out for a cup of tea. I've got some homemade biscuits from Woolworths. And hope to see you next week.